Long before the first vampire drew breath, in the sun-baked cradle of ancient Nehekhara, the great land of mighty cities, priest-kings, and the worship of a vast pantheon, a man was born who would shatter the natural order of life and death forever. Nagash was the firstborn son of King Ketep of Khemri, greatest city of the Third Dynasty, circa -2001 C. As tradition demanded, the eldest son was dedicated to the mortuary cult, the sacred order of priests who preserved the bodies of the dead and prepared them for eternal life in the afterlife. Nagash entered the cult young and rose swiftly, becoming high priest at an unprecedented age of 32, the youngest in history. But Nagash was no humble servant of the gods. He hungered for more than ritual embalming and prayers to Osirian, god of the underworld. He desired true power over death itself. His younger brother, Thutep, ascended the throne as priest-king after Ketep's death. Nagash seethed in the shadows. One moonless night, he acted. He murdered Thutep's guards, sealed his brother alive inside their father's pyramid tomb, and claimed the throne of Khemri by force. The reign of Nagash had begun, a time of terror, blasphemy, and growing sorcery. Nagash's ambition led him to capture a stranded ship of dark elves, sorceresses skilled in the darkest arts. He tortured them until they taught him their forbidden magic, then murdered them. Blending dark elf sorcery with the mortuary cult's ancient rites of preservation, Nagash invented necromancy, the foul art of binding souls to rotting flesh and commanding the dead as slaves. To fuel his power, he built the Black Citadel of Nagashizar beneath Cripple Peak, forcing thousands of slaves to mine warpstone, the crystallized chaos essence that amplified his spells to godlike levels. He distilled the elixir of life from warpstone and dark rituals, granting himself and his lieutenant, Arkan the Black, unnatural immortality, though it twisted them into something no longer truly alive. Nagash's rule became ever more tyrannical. He enslaved entire cities, raised armies of corpses, and desecrated the sacred mortuary cult. The other priest-kings of Nehekhara, led by Alcadizar, the conqueror of Khemri after a long rebellion, united against him. In a cataclysmic war, they stormed Nagashizar. Nagash unleashed a terrible spell that nearly destroyed them all. But Alcadizar, wielding a mighty blade, struck the necromancer down. Nagash's body was burned, but his spirit endured, bound to his 9 books of Nagash, his crown of sorcery, and other artifacts. His first death came around -1151 C, but his legacy was already eternal. Necromancy had been born, and the dead could be made to serve the living no longer. Only centuries later would his corrupted elixir, stolen and twisted by Neferata of Lahmia, give rise to the vampires. But that is another tale. Nagash's shadow fell first and longest across the world. Centuries later, in the decadent city-state of Lahmia, Queen Neferata, beautiful, power-hungry, terrified of growing old, got her hands on those stolen tomes with help from the scheming priest Wisoran. She brewed her own version of Nagash's elixir in secret. Neferata, beautiful and eternal in her ambition, stole the secrets of Nagash himself. She brewed a flawed elixir of life, immortality, at a terrible price. When she drank, the thirst was born.
On the night she drank it, her heart stopped, her skin turned pale as moonlight, and the thirst awakened. Neferata became the first true vampire. She immediately blood-kissed her entire inner court.
The first vampire rose, pale and perfect, fangs gleaming under the moon. She shared her curse with her chosen 11, birthing the trueborn. And from their bloodlines spread a plague of night across the old world.
For centuries they ruled Lahmia as immortal gods, feasting on their own people in decadent orgies of blood. Eventually the rest of Nehekhara said enough was enough, marched on Lahmia, burned the city to the ground, and slaughtered most of the vampires. Nagash, watching from afar, cursed the survivors with the weakness to sunlight for being cowards who fled instead of fighting. The remaining vampires scattered across the world and birthed the 5 great bloodlines. The warrior Abhorash, who would found the blood dragons, the masked Ushoran, Wasoran, the mad wizard who would sire the Necrarchs, and Vashanesh, the direct ancestor of the von Carstein bloodline.
But not all who drank embraced the shadow. One warrior, Abhorash, captain of Lahmia's guard, fought the hunger with iron will. He wandered the wilds, rejecting weak prey, seeking mastery over the curse that bound him. In the storm-lashed grey mountains, he faced a monstrous red dragon, the ultimate test of valor. Sword met claw, fire met fury. Abhorash slew the beast and drank its heart-blood, and the thirst was quenched forever. No longer slave to blood, he became the first true blood dragon, a knight eternal, bound only by honor and the pursuit of perfection. From his legend rose the Order of the Blood Dragons, vampiric warriors who reject savagery for chivalry, forever honing their blades in search of worthy foes. In Mousillon's cursed swamps and Bretonnia's fallen fields, they ride under crimson banners, echoes of a queen's fatal sip, forged into unbreakable code. Such is the legacy of the night. From one woman's fear of death to knights who would rather die again than drink unworthy blood.
The Blood Dragons, masters of martial undeath. The Blood Dragons are one of the 5 great vampire bloodlines, born from the ancient curses of Nehekhara and defined by an unyielding code of martial honor. Unlike the scheming von Carsteins or the decayed Necrarchs, the Blood Dragons are eternal warriors, knights errant of the night who seek perfection through endless combat, scorning the weak and the unworthy. Their story is one of chivalry twisted into blood-soaked immortality, from the sands of Lahmia to the cursed fens of Mousillon, enduring through the vampire wars and into the apocalyptic end times. Origins in Nehekhara. The bloodline traces back to Abhorash, the greatest warrior of ancient Nehekhara. In the golden age of the priest kings, Abhorash served as the captain of Queen Neferata's royal guard in Lahmia. He was a mortal paragon, unmatched in blade work, unyielding in battle, a living legend who slew armies single-handedly. When Neferata brewed Nagash's corrupted elixir of life and became the first vampire around -1200 IC, she offered the blood kiss to her inner circle. Abhorash accepted, not out of fear of death, but to become an even greater warrior. As a vampire, Abhorash's prowess only grew, but so did his disgust for the decadence of Lahmia's court. While others indulged in orgies of blood, he trained relentlessly, viewing the thirst as a weakness to overcome. During the fall of Lahmia in -1149 YC, when the united priest kings sacked the city, Abhorash fought like a demon, holding the gates against hordes until Neferata ordered retreat. Cursed by Nagash for fleeing, he and his kin gained the vampire's infamous weaknesses, but Abhorash vowed to transcend them. Scattering north, Abhorash wandered the world as a solitary predator, seeking worthy foes. In the Grey Mountains, he scaled the peaks and slew a massive red dragon that had terrorized the lands for centuries. Drinking its fiery blood quenched his thirst forever. He became the ultimate warrior, free of vampiric frailties, his strength amplified to godlike levels. Before vanishing into legend, some say to await a final challenge, Abhorash commanded his progeny, "Seek perfection in combat. Drink only from the worthy. Honor the code of the night." Thus, the blood dragons were born, vampires who emulate knightly orders, turning victims into thralls only if they prove valorous in duel. Rise and code of the Blood Knights. Over millennia, blood dragons formed loose knightly orders, roaming the old world as blood knights. They despise cowardice and politics, living by a strict code, challenge worthy opponents, spare the weak or use them as bait, and seek the red thirst's end by slaying a mighty beast and drinking its blood. Many are former Bretonnian knights or Empire Reichsguard, turned after proving their mettle in battle. Notable figures emerged, like Wallach Harkon, who founded the Order of the Blood Dragon in the early imperial calendar. Posing as a mortal knight, Wallach infiltrated the Grail Chapel in Bretonnia, dueling and turning its guardians into his first knights. Their fortress, Bloodkeep, became a bastion where vampires trained in eternal combat. Wallach's order ravaged the border princes, amassing legions of skeletal warriors and black-armored knights. In 1797 IC, they allied briefly with Vlad von Carstein, but prioritized personal glory over conquest. The most infamous is the Red Duke, a blood dragon who embodies the line's tragic fall. Once Duke of Aquitaine in Bretonnia, he was turned by a vampire during a crusade around 900 IC. Maddened by undeath, he returned home, slaughtering his family and raising an undead host. Defeated at the Battle of Seren Field in 928 IC, he was staked and buried. But like all vampires, death is temporary. The Curse of Mousillon. Mousillon ties deeply to the blood dragon's story. Once Bretonnia's richest dukedom, famed for chivalric tournaments and fertile lands, it fell to ruin after the affair of the False Grail in 938 IC. A False Grail night brought plague and madness. The land warped into fetid swamps, peasants mutated, and the dead rose unbidden. By 1000 IC, Mousillon was a cursed no-man's land, shunned by Bretonnia's king. Enter the Red Duke. Resurrected around 1930 IC by dark magic, he claimed Mousillon as his domain, ruling from the crumbling Chateau de Song. The dukedom became a vampire haven. Twisted knights patrolled foggy moors, ghouls lurked in crypts, and skeletal armies marched from barrows. The Red Duke launched endless errantry wars against Bretonnia, seeking honorable combat but leaving trails of slaughter. In 1975 IC, he besieged Cannel, only to be driven back by the Grail Knight Duke Chilfroy. Mousillon's curse amplified the blood dragon's isolation. Bretonnia declared it lost, erasing it from maps, but it endured as an undead kingdom. Peasants paid blood taxes, black markets thrived with grave robbers, and vampire knights held macabre tournaments. The Red Duke's repeated defeats, impaled in 2276 IC, beheaded in 2491 IC, only fueled his rage, resurrecting each time stronger. During the Vampire Wars, 2010 to 2145 IC, blood dragons fought alongside von Carsteins, but often independently. Wallach joined Conrad's mad campaigns, reveling in the carnage, while the Red Duke raided Bretonnia opportunistically. Many perished truly, staked without resurrection, but survivors retreated to hidden strongholds like Bloodkeep or Mousillon. End Times Fate. In the End Times, 2520 to 2528 IC, chaos engulfed the world. Nagash's return united the undead under the Morturks. The Red Duke, ever the warrior, allied with Archon the Black to resurrect Nagash, fighting at La Maisontal Abbey. Blood dragons charged into apocalyptic battles. Wallach led knightly lances against chaos hordes at Alderfen, while Abhorash himself emerged, slaying demons beside Eltharion at the Battle of the Nine Daemons. Mousillon became a frontline fortress. As Bretonnia fell, the Red Duke defended it against Nurgle's plagues, but betrayal struck. Mannfred von Carstein manipulated events, leading to the Duke's final defeat. Abhorash met his end honorably, dueling Tyrion in Athel Loren as the world shattered. The Blood Dragon's legacy, a few survivors scattered into the mortal realms of Age of Sigmar, eternal knights seeking worthy foes amid endless war. The Blood Dragons represent vampirism's noble side, warriors unbound by time, forever honing their blades. Yet their code masks a predator's hunger, and Mousillon stands as their cursed monument, a land where chivalry rots in the grave.
The von Carstein line, descended from Vachanesh, eventually found its way north into the cold, misty, already cursed province of Sylvania. In the year 1797 imperial calendar, the mad Count Otto von Drac was dying. His daughter Isabella was about to inherit the county. A mysterious, deathly pale, ridiculously handsome nobleman calling himself Vlad von Carstein appeared at court. He married Isabella the same night her father croaked, took control of Sylvania, and began quietly improving the aristocracy by giving them the blood kiss. By 2010, on Geheimnisnacht, Vlad dropped the mask. Standing on the battlements of Drakenhof Castle under a blood-red moon, he raised his arms, and the dead of Sylvania rose with him. He sent agents to the ruined city of Mordheim to hoard Warpstone, turned the entire province into a fortress of undeath, and declared open war on the living empire. The first vampire war had begun. Vlad marched again and again. He won battle after battle. He was killed 6 separate times, staked through the heart, beheaded, burned alive, impaled, hacked apart, and every single time the Carstein ring pulled his soul back into a new body. The empire was in absolute panic. In 2051, he besieged Altdorf itself. Grand Theogonist Wilhelm III and a common thief named Felix Mann managed to steal the Carstein ring during the chaos. Vlad was finally staked through the heart and hurled from the walls. Isabella, heartbroken, committed suicide beside his corpse. The first war ended, but the nightmare was far from over. Conrad von Carstein took the throne next. He was already completely insane before the blood kiss, and undeath only made him worse. There was no strategy, no politics, just pure slaughter. He ripped through Stirland like a red hurricane, sacked the entire moot, and feasted on halfling villages, allied with the most bloodthirsty blood knights, and even fought entire dwarf armies underground. Conrad wanted carnage, not conquest. His mind finally snapped completely at the Battle of Grim Moor in 2121. He charged alone into the enemy lines, screaming like a lunatic, got surrounded, captured, and beheaded by Count Helmar. The Second War ended in blood and madness, but the von Carsteins were not finished. Mannfred von Carstein, the last and most dangerous of the three, had spent the previous wars doing something none of the others bothered with. While Vlad and Conrad were fighting, Mannfred slipped south to the ruins of Nehekhara and Lahmia for decades. He studied the oldest necromantic tomes like a twisted scholar, mastered rituals even Nagash would envy, and stole the Liber Mortis itself, the single most forbidden book of dark magic in existence. When he returned in 2132 during the Empire's civil war, he played the game like a master. He exploited every weakness, raised entire graveyards overnight, used the Liber Mortis to summon legions the Empire could not match. He nearly took Altdorf. He retreated only when it suited.
Him, always one step ahead, always leaving false trails and decoys. The final confrontation came at the Battle of Hel Fen in 2145. Martin of Sturland and a combined dwarf alliance cornered Mannfred in the swamps. Jerek Kruger ripped his arm off and tore away the ring. Mannfred sank into the black water, screaming curses that still echo today. The Empire declared victory, burned Sylvania clean, and thought the vampire wars were finally over. They were wrong. Mannfred is not dead. Centuries later, necromantic residue dripped into his corpse and he woke up colder, smarter, and more patient than ever. He kept scheming in the shadows, rebuilding his power. When the end times came and Nagash returned, Mannfred was right there helping to resurrect the supreme lord of undeath. Nagash made him one of the Mortarchs, Mortarch of Night, and gave him command of vast undead legions. Mannfred fought in the final wars, betrayed allies out of spite, killed heroes simply because he could, and ultimately met his end at the hands of Tyrion during the last battle for the world. But even in death, his legacy remains. Sylvania is still a cursed vampire-run province, where the dead walk openly. The nobility are mostly vampires or their thralls, and the peasants still pay the blood tax every full moon. The night still belongs to the counts. The Empire thinks they won the vampire wars. They didn't. And one day, when the world grows weak again, the dead will walk once more. After the fall of Lahmia and the collapse of ancient Nehekhara into the silent realm of the Tomb Kings, the surviving vampires scattered north into the Old World, away from the wrath of Nagash and the risen legions of the dead. In this new era, two bloodlines rose to dominate the shadows in ways no others could. The Lahmians, born directly from Queen Neferata herself, became the hidden rulers of the living. Fleeing the ruins of their homeland, Neferata and her sisterhood carved out a new existence in the Silver Pinnacle, a conquered dwarf hold high in the world's edge mountains. From there, they wove a vast web of intrigue across the Empire, Bretonnia, Kislev, and beyond. These vampires are the epitome of beauty and subtlety. Eternally youthful, flawless, seductive, with pale skin and voices that could charm a king into ruin. They infiltrate courts as noble ladies, courtesans, or mysterious advisors, never raising armies, but instead pulling strings from the shadows. A single Lahmian whisper can topple dynasties, start wars, or ensure a favorable treaty is signed at midnight. Their power lies in manipulation and secrets. They despise open conflict and see brute force as vulgar. Yet their vanity is their flaw. They crave worship and adoration, and a wounded ego can lead to devastating revenge. In stark contrast, the Necrocs, descended from Wusoran, the most loyal of Neferata's original 11 and a disciple of Nagash, rejected beauty and society altogether. After escaping Nehekhara, Wisoran and his followers retreated to isolated towers and forgotten ruins across the Old World, from the border princes to the forests of Sylvania. Their bodies decayed over centuries into skeletal horrors, hunched frames, parchment skin stretched over bone, missing features, and eyes glowing with sorcerous fire. They are the purest necromancers among vampires, masters of raising and commanding the dead on a massive scale. While Lahmians seduce mortals, necrocs experiment on them, dissecting bodies, binding souls, and perfecting spells from ancient grimoires like Wusoran's own grimoire Necronium. They care nothing for thrones or courts. Their goal is ultimate mastery over death itself, envisioning a world of bone ruled by intellect alone. Their curse is physical frailty. They are vulnerable to sunlight and steel, but their magical power makes them terrifying from afar. These two bloodlines represent the duality of vampirism after the fall of the ancient world, one thriving in the light of mortal society, the other lurking in darkness with forbidden knowledge. The Lahmians keep the living world blind to the night, while the necrocs prepare the dead to one day overwhelm it. Then the end times arrived, and the old divisions shattered under Nagash's return. Neferata, ever the schemer, became the Mortarch of blood, leading her Lahmians in a shadow campaign across the crumbling empire. They turned elector counts, poisoned alliances, and ensured key mortal leaders fell at the right moment, all while secretly aiding Nagash's resurrection. Their subtlety bought time for the great necromancer to reclaim his power. The necrocs threw themselves into the apocalypse with fanatic glee. Wisoran's heirs converged on sites like La Maisontal Abbey, channeling their decayed might into the rituals that raised continents of dead. Their towers emptied as skeletal legions marched, fulfilling centuries of prophecy in a tide of bone and sorcery. But betrayal fractured everything. Mannfred von Carstein's schemes undid fragile pacts. The Red Duke fell in Mousillon. Abhorash met his end dueling Tyrion amid Athel Loren's ruins. Nagash's victory was Pyrrhic. The world broke, and the survivors fled into the mortal realms. Some Lahmians rebuilt in hidden courts across new realms. Some necrocs still labor in shadowed spires, waiting for the next cycle. That's how two bloodlines, one of silk and whispers, one of bone and forbidden lore, helped end the old world.